Great, thanks. So my name is Emily Hughes. I am the product manager for BDC Powered by PIC-SURE, and today I'll be showing you how to build cohorts with advanced queries in BDC. And so before diving into the new feature, I wanted to first start with a brief introduction to the platform. So BDC PIC-SURE is a platform that enables data exploration and cohort building. To use it, you essentially take 3 steps. So the first step is to search for terms of interest. So this can be specific variables, phenotypes, or clinical outcomes that are of interest to your research. Second, once you find variables that are applied or that apply to your research, you can add filters on these phenotypic variables and genomic variants. And this takes us into the third stage. So by adding the filters, you're specifying inclusion criteria for your selected cohort. So you can see the counts of participants that match these filters and retrieve this cohort data. Today, I'll be showing you how to build advanced queries. And queries can mean slightly different things in different contexts, so I wanted to provide the definitions that I'll be using for this demo. So first of all, a filter describes selecting values or variables as inclusion criteria for a cohort. So an example of this is filtering a sex variable to select females. On the other hand, a query is a combination of filters that defines the selected cohort. So an example of this is creating a cohort of females, so adding a filter on the sex variable that have COPD, so a filter on the COPD diagnosis variable. So this brings us to an advanced query. So an advanced query describes a query created with different logical operators and groups of related filters. And as the name suggests, this allows you to get much more detailed and specific with the cohort building. So let me show you an example here. Let's say that I'm interested in females with COPD that have a history of smoking. So I would add a filter for sex equals female. I'd add a filter for COPD diagnosis to yes. But then there are a lot of different variables that are related to a history of smoking. So we can see that there's cigars, cigarettes, pipes, and so forth. With an advanced query, I can specify that I want the cohort to be female, and I want the cohort to have COPD, and I want the cohort to have any of the following criteria. So I can group these smoking variables together and use the OR operator to indicate that I want these participants to meet at least one of these criteria. Another opportunity is that this new feature enables cross-study queries. So as you may be aware, BDC currently hosts over 450 studies. Conducting meta-analyses with these studies can be quite powerful, and advanced queries enable you to build a cohort to start combining studies in a single query. So using a similar example, let's say that I want to study females with COPD across study A and study B. With advanced queries, I can group the related sex variables together and the related COPD diagnosis variables to query across the studies. So now that we've introduced building advanced queries and what a query is, I wanted to flip over to the live demo here. So I'll go over to this tab. So this is the landing page of Biodata Catalyst powered by PIC-SURE. So you can see I'm currently not logged in. So this is available in both our public and authorized or logged in versions. So you could do this without having an account or without having authorization to access data on BDC. So I'll go ahead and go to the Discover page, which is our publicly available cohort building page. Move this. So you can see I've already kind of built a query here just to kind of get us started and streamline things for demo purposes. This is what the main search interface looks like. On the left-hand side, you can see there are different facets that I can select. So I've selected the COPD gene dataset facet. So this is a COPD related study that I'm interested in. I've conducted a search for e-cigarette, so we can see all of the variable results that relate to e-cigarettes in the COPD gene study. And over on the right-hand side, this panel here shows all of the filters and the count of participants that I've added based on my filters. So here we can see, if I click on the filter here, I've selected females in the sex variable. I've selected yes for those that have COPD in the COPD variable. And then similarly, I've added these smoking filters. Right now, by default, we can see that these are all ANDed together. So because these are ANDed, it's selecting people that fit or have all of these criteria. So our group of participants is really small. It's less than 10 here. Now let's add the last variable of interest. So I'll search for smoke. And we can see that the last one here that I'm interested in is smoke menthol. So do you now, or did you smoke menthol cigarettes? I can click on this filter icon here to see the values by which I can filter, and I'll select yes to add that filter as well. Okay, so now I have all of the filters I'm interested in. I can click on this Build Advanced Query button here in the Filters section. This takes me to the Advanced Query Builder page. So there's a couple of things on this page that are designed to help you interpret your query and build your query. So here at the top, we have the query summary, which sort of displays your query as an equation-like summary. So if that makes more sense in your brain to interpret this as an equation, this is really helpful. If not, you can also minimize this if that's not helpful to you. But down here is where we get to the main query building section. So at the top, you'll see the toggle between and or. If I click or, we can see that my query summary changes, and also the ands all change to ors between the filters. So just to show you that again, when I toggle between the two, all of these change here. I can also click Add Subquery to add a group, an empty group where I can drag filters. So by clicking Add Subquery and scrolling down here, we can see there's this empty group here that's ready to have things dragged into it. So I can use the 6 dot icon over here on the left-hand side to click and drag the filter into the group. So I'll drag all of the smoking-related filters into this single group. We can see my query summary has been updated to show some parentheses to kind of show that grouping in the equation format. Now, if you remember from the slides, we wanted to say sex equals female and has COPD and has one of these. So we want to change the filters in this group, or the logical operators in this group to or. So now I can see that I have sex and COPD and any of these criteria. Now that looks good to me, I'll click Apply Changes. And now we can see that I have 450 participants or so that are female, had COPD, and have a history of smoking based on one of these variables. If I click back to Discover, I can continue editing, adding filters, and I can always go back to that Build Advanced Query view to fine-tune my query even further. I'll also just quickly let me delete some of these history smoking. I wanted to also show the cross-study example. So here I know of Spiromics is a data set that is also has females and COPD information. So here I'll search for sex. We can see biological sex. I can select females. And I'll also search for COPD and filter to those that had COPD diagnosed by a health professional. So we'll select yes again. Now again, I have a very low number of participants in this cohort because right now the query is trying to find people in COPD gene and Spiromics, which is, there's not much overlap there that have these criteria. Going back to Build Advanced Query, I can add a subquery to put my COPD variables there, and then add another subquery to put my sex variables there. And I'll want to change both of these to or and have the middle be and if we remember from the slides. So now it's going to be COPD diagnosed from spiromics or COPD from COPD gene, and females from spiromics or COPD gene. Again, applying those changes, now I've created a single query across studies, and I can see that there's over 2,000 participants that meet this criteria. So this gives me a great idea of the feasibility of using these two studies for my female COPD research.